Hello everyone and welcome to Most Amazing Top 10. Are you sitting down? Are you at home? Is your home located in a town? Well, if it is, I can almost guarantee it's not one of these. Let's take a look. Up first on the list we have Demon's Alley, a mysterious ghost town in New Jersey. The alley is made up of a handful of abandoned houses located off Route 23 in West Milford. Although there is no official record as to why the homes, which have been around since before anyone can remember, were abandoned in the first place, there are many theories that have speculated the cause. The most popular of which tells the story of a seemingly regular man who moved into the neighborhood, after which strange things began to happen. It appears as though this normal man was actually the leader of a large, very sinister cult. A fact which of course was unbeknownst to his neighbors, who upon receiving an invitation to the man's home happily obliged. It is said that once all of the members of the neighborhood had finally arrived, they were trapped inside to endure nothing short of a horrific tragedy, as members of the man's cult emerged from the shadows and massacred every last one. Our next town is the infamous Roanoke, and unlike Demon Alley, whose residents disappeared without a trace, the story of Roanoke is just slightly more bizarre, as an entire colony, including all of their homes and belongings, are said to disappeared. If you're a horror buff, you might recognize the name from season 6 of American Horror Story, which depicts the town in all its dark and gory glory, but again, that's a TV show, so let's get down to the facts. Roanoke, also known as the town that never was located in what's now known as Dare County in North Carolina. There is much more mystery than information surrounding the disappearance, but it is said that John White, an English artist, discovered the town around 1585, after which he returned back to England. In 1590, however, he made his way back to Roanoke to visit the locals whom he'd befriended on his first voyage, but was absolutely shocked when, upon his arrival, he found the town completely abandoned. Even the houses had disappeared, and in their place a barrier fort was placed. And one word, Croatoan, was carved into a wooden post. Next up we have Pine Point, located in the Northwest Territories in Canada. The small lead and zinc mining town that completely vanished in the 1980s, just 25 years after it was originally established in the 1960s. The town came to be as a result of a joint venture between the Government of Canada and the Cominco Mining Company, and was fully equipped with schools and small town businesses. When the Cominco mine officially shut its doors in 1988, the town's erasure begun. As buildings were knocked down, residents quickly evacuated until there was nothing left more than the shell of a thing that once was. Now, I can understand Cominco deciding to end its involvement in the town. Perhaps the mines ran out of their precious lead or zinc. Perhaps the mines ran out of their precious lead or zinc that had led to the town's creation in the first place. But to begin knocking down buildings and pushing the town into a void of non-existence? Call me a cynic, but I think there's something more to it. Alright, for this next one, we might be veering slightly off the rails, but bear with me as we discuss the United Kingdom of Torrid. Was it a town that vanished? One that never existed at all? Or perhaps maybe one that did exist or does exist, but in a universe entirely separate from our own? The story begins in July of 1954 in a Japanese airport when a real man by the name of John Allen Kucher Zergus presented a passport in which the agent at the desk had never seen before. In fact, no one had ever seen it before, as the passport had been issued by the United Kingdom of Torrid, which as far as we know doesn't exist. You're probably thinking he was thrown out of the airport and never made his flight, but the strange part is that he had actually just gotten off a flight, his passport having been stamped and checked multiple times before boarding. So what was going on? When questioned, the man insisted that the United Kingdom of Torrid was in fact a real place, and demanded someone bring him a map so he could provide some much needed education to the agents. Upon seeing the map, however, he became angry. He pointed to an area on the border between France and Madrid and asked why they would have provided him with a fake map. Police decided it would be best to question the man, and so they put him up in a hotel for the night with the hopes of doing so the next day, his room guarded by 2 officers. However, the next morning the room was completely empty. The man had vanished along with his passport and any trace of the unknown country. Some people believe this story, the presence of the man and the existence of a legitimate passport issued by what appeared to be a legitimate government, is proof of a parallel universe. But what do you guys think? Share it in the comments and I'll take a look. And next on the list we have Villa Epicuén in Argentina, a small village on a lake just 6 hours away from the capital capital, Buenos Aires. The town was created in 1920 when an Englishman saw the land and decided to lease it with the hopes of converting it into a tourist hotspot. He built a resort and paid local scientists to back his claims that the town's lake had healing properties, and all of a sudden, business was booming. Argentinian natives flocked to the area for a chance to experience the waters, along with many Jewish tourists who had found interest in the lake's uncanny similarity to the Dead Sea. While you might be thinking visitors to the town were unfortunate victims of a tourist trap, the mineral-rich lake really did have restorative properties and helped many people with arthritis, skin conditions, and even diabetes. The good fortune did eventually come to an end, however, when in 1985 it started to rain, and rain, and rain some more. So much so that water levels began to rise at a rate of 1 centimeter per hour. And by the end of it all, after 2 weeks of heavy rainfall and a broken dam, the water was 3 meters deep and the town was evacuated. It seems that all the water had given, it had also swiftly taken away. The town remained empty even after the water levels subsided many years later, except for Pablo Novak, age 39, who was born in the town and who remains to this day living in solitude in the ghost of a town that once was. Next on the list we have Varosha Famagusta on the island of Cyprus. Once a booming tourist town, the area is now nothing more than memories and ruins. In the late 1960s, the town had an estimated population of 60,000 individuals, a number which rose significantly in the high season to 100,000 people staying in the town. So, what happened to it? Well, in 1974, Turkey invaded the island country, causing citywide evacuations. The town was left abandoned and frozen in time, as occupants of the area had to flee quickly, leaving behind all of their belongings as if they had just run out to the store, expecting to be back home in no less than 20 minutes. After the attack, however, the town was fenced off from the rest of the island and no one was allowed to return, not even to retrieve items left behind. Because of this, the town still stands today, deserted and eerie, a snapshot in time, untouched for over 50 years. And next we have Hashima, Japan, also known as Battleship Island. So not just a town, but an entire island that became nothing more than a ghost town. The island was discovered about 9 miles, 15 kilometers away from the city of Nagasaki. And in 1810, coal was discovered there, an incredibly valuable resource at the time. In 1887, the island was converted into a mining facility inhabited by over 5,000 individuals. But that didn't last long, as in 1974, petroleum was becoming the preferred power product, and so with coal becoming assumingly obsolete, the mining facility was shut down. Because the mine was the island's only source of infrastructure, its foreclosure led to the departure of the entirety of the town's inhabitants. Today, the island, with its gray buildings and concrete moat, stands abandoned in the sea, closely resembling some kind of island battleship hybrid, hence its fitting nickname, Battleship Island. Next up we have Bodie, California, another town frozen in time. In 1877, Bodie and its massive gold mine became the place to be for those hoping to make it rich, which honestly was not a bad move, as the town did produce more than $38 million worth of gold and silver during its approximately 5-year run. When the town was no longer lucrative, the residents began to slowly depart, moving on to bigger and better financial opportunities. By 1915, the area was considered a literal ghost town, believed to be haunted by past members of the community. Today, it stands abandoned, with stores and homes fully stocked and forgotten, a symbol of the late 1980s American history. Starting off our top 2, we have Centralia, Pennsylvania, aka the town on fire. The town was abandoned in 1982, 20 years after an underground fire had broken out in one of the coal mines that ran beneath it, a fire that still burns to this day. Of course, as you can imagine, living in a town that is essentially burning from the ground up is not ideal, but for some reason no major concern was raised until 1979, when a local gas station owner noticed that the temperature of the gas being stored in underground tanks had reached a temperature of 77 degrees Celsius, 172 degrees Fahrenheit. And even still, little movement was made out of the town at this time. It wasn't until 1982, when a sinkhole opened up in a local resident's backyard, that people started to realize the true gravity of the situation. situation. Not only did a young boy fall into the sinkhole, which he did survive by the way, the massive opening in the earth was spewing out lethal amounts of carbon monoxide gas. It was, finally, at this point that Congress voted to fund the relocation of all the townspeople. But believe it or not, underground fires, possible gas explosions, and lethal exposure still wasn't enough to convince some of the residents to leave their home, meaning there are still an incredibly stubborn few who still reside in Centralia to this day. That's wild. And finally, because I appreciate you all so much, we've got a 3-for-1. The disappearance of Louisiana towns Ruddock, Wangram, and Frenier in 1915. The trio, located on the southwest edge of Lake Pontchartrain, were major hotspots of immigration for German cabbage farmers, if you can believe it. The towns met their end on September 19th when a massive hurricane moved in from the Caribbean with surges of 13 feet and 125-mile-per-hour winds. On that day, the towns were completely washed away and over 300 lives were lost. While this is tragic, it's also scientifically explainable. But what isn't is the way that the storm and the many fatalities had been foretold. Records of the town, corresponding with records of voodoo priestesses, recall a woman by the name of Julia Brown, who served as a local healer. She was also quite the entertainer, spending her evenings sitting on her front porch, playing her guitar and singing made-up songs. But as she neared the end of her life, things began to take a sinister turn. Songs which once illustrated beauty and joy had been replaced by a tune of warning, as the woman sang that one day she would die and everything would die with her. Eventually, Julia did pass, and her funeral was held on October 2nd of 1915, the very day the storm rolled into town. You guys, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate your support over here at Most Amazing Top 10. I've been your host, Hannah Thompson, and I'll see you all in the next video.